Hello, everyone. My name is Lindsay Taviran.
Hi, I'm Cecilia.
And we are the owners and founders of F-BOM.com. That is F-BOM.com. We are the Feminist Book of the Month. Cecilia is demonstrating our brand new sticker, which we'll be giving out at WizCon at the end of May. If you'll be attending, we hope you stop by our vendor table. Today, we are super excited to be talking about our spring book of the month. It is Daughters of Anarchy by C.A. Hartman. She will be in our interview today answering your questions, and we're super excited to have her. Cecilia, do you want to say a few words?
Yeah, so we're featuring Daughters of Anarchy. It's a dystopian noir, which is, I don't think it's very much of a spring book, but it's a little bit dark.
I think dystopian is perfect for any time of the year.
It's true. There's a lot of dystopian fans out there. So I think that I will let Christy take it away and just tell us a little bit about herself and about Daughters of Anarchy, and then it will come back to me and Lindsay, and we'll start on the questions. So go ahead, Christy.
Hi, everybody. I'm Christy. Yes, I'm the author of the Daughters of Anarchy series. I do write science fiction primarily, but I also have a pen name where I write in other genres that are still secret. But I love science fiction for a lot of reasons. I love that it thinks about the future and what could be, both for better and for worse. I like dystopian because it's a way of imagining what can go wrong in society and what we could possibly do about it now. And I think it just creates tension. I like tension in a book. Daughters of Anarchy kind of was born out of, as I put on the forum, I've always wanted to write a story about a woman with a gun. And I have a fascination with guns, although I have mixed feelings about them like most people. And I wanted to write about a woman who's a vigilante. You know, people usually expect vigilantes to be male. And I like the idea of a woman doing it for good reasons, not only to get rid of bad people, but to clean up society. And so that kind of spawned my idea for the book. And like most series, it starts out as one book and then blows up into something bigger. And I got really immersed in the world and wanted to expand what she/they do in this series. And it's a 4-book series, and I'm pretty happy with how it completed, or how it finalized in that last book. So anyway, that's it.
I'm always in awe of people who write series. I can barely handle the first book. I like to try and contain the ideas and make them, I guess, add complexity in one book, and I try not to let it spill out into more books. Maybe because I know it'll just keep going and going, and then I'll have a 13 book series on my hands.
That's the danger, I guess.
All right, so we've heard a little bit, I guess you've answered a little bit where your ideas come from. One big theme, of course, or I guess factor in the book, is that you are a scientist and you have a scientific background. So I want to know, how did that influence your world? How did you develop the rules of the dystopia? What were the other influences besides your scientific background?
So I have an interesting background in terms of my education and my former career. I have a master's degree in clinical psych. And so kind of that understanding of abnormal behavior always informs, you know, stories like this where people are acting in abnormal ways, and even society's a little abnormal. It's a way to kind of define it. And then my PhD is in behavioral genetics, which is basically the study of the genetic and environmental contributions to behavior, particularly problematic behavior. I've studied what we call antisocial behavior, which in psychology means behavior that's bad for society, criminal behavior, basically. So I've studied that. I've studied ADHD. I've studied drug addiction and the impact it has on not only on the brain and on the body, but on society. And that addiction is so much more than people think it is. It's it's a societal problem, you know, and it can be a problem of it's a social problem, in my opinion. And so all that stuff I learned, so that the years I spent getting my education, as well as the years I spent actually doing science, have totally informed what I do. And so everything from the idea of genetic manipulation, which we're not capable of that now, obviously, but there may come a time when we are, although my suspicion is it's going to take longer than people think. But even right now, there's technology that's very accessible to even the average person, where you can modify your genome if you really want to. And so, and then looking at the things like the social issues, like in one of the future books, addiction is a big theme. In certainly, I think in book 2 and a little bit in book 3. And, you know, when we studied addiction, you know, I got to meet some of the people who were our subjects that we studied, and see their situations. And, you know, and a lot of them did come from poverty. A lot of them come from horrible backgrounds, like the kind of stuff of nightmares. You know, it isn't just something that happens out of the blue, or because someone, you know, likes ecstasy too much, you know. So I could go on and on about that, but I hope that answers your question.
Exactly. I think it's so interesting that you have that background. It actually makes me wonder what you've kind of embedded in each of the characters, just based on your research and what you've learned during your degree. Is there a favorite character you have to write, and how did your background inform how you made that character?
So my favorite character, do you mean someone from the story, or just a general archetype I like to write?
I would like to know a specific character, if you're inclined to choose one.
Oh, wow.
I know, it's always a tough one for authors to answer.
So you're talking about in the story, though, in this particular story.
Yeah.
Gosh, I don't know if I can choose. I'm so sorry. It's well, it's hard because I don't want to spoil anything for future books, for anybody who chooses to read those. So there are a lot of more colorful characters that enter the scene in those books, and I do have a bit of an attachment to a couple of those, even though one of them is really a bitch, but she's a great character. And another one is complex in her own way. And but in the first book, you know, I have to go with Stevie, just because she's the star. You know, you don't really get to know who the other main players yet. So, and I like her because she's a juxtaposition of both good and bad, you know, like a lot of people on some level.
How does I mean, I know, I think you kind of mentioned a little bit in the book, and I kind of get a sense myself, but how does Stevie reconcile her job and the aims of the government with her own moral code? Or is that something more addressed in future books?
That's a great question, and the topic of her job and the government's overstepping, you know, it being a little bit authoritarian, comes up pretty heavily in future books, especially the last one. But I think that I think that I think she's a bit mercenary when it comes to that. I think that she sees her job as a means to an end. So on the one hand, she doesn't agree with it. I think she thinks it's wrong on some level, but she doesn't have that horrible, like, it's so wrong, you know, like that moral feeling like somebody else would have in the stories, like maybe her mother had. You know, she's a little bit more, it's wrong, but, you know, I can use this to my advantage, and she does in the most devastating way. And so I think that she's got mixed feelings about it, but I think to some extent her real feelings about how wrong it is don't come up until later. And I think, you know, she decides to maybe do something about that.
Yeah, I guess I get the sense that she was used to it, a lot like most of the populace, and it's just part of their life now. But also, yeah, that the ends justify the means to a certain extent. So I thought that was a really interesting element of the story, that it wasn't such a big element to her, even though that is such a big part of the world building that you put us in, is constant government surveillance pretty much everywhere, except those couple of gray areas that she knows about and manipulates accordingly. So.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, she is a little bit blasé about it compared to maybe how she should be, and I think that's probably why. And like you said, I think that people can get accustomed to a lot of infringements like that. You know, it's at first you're like, oh my God, it's such an invasion. But after a while, you'd be like, you know, like even the fact that when we found out, you know, Gmail is being monitored in some way, and as well as other data gathering areas, you know, a lot of people I know were like, I'm not doing anything wrong, so who cares? So not realizing that to some extent it could be a little disturbing that we are being watched a little bit, even so.
No doubt. And I mean, with the Facebook, all the issues with Facebook, that's a whole other rabbit hole that we're just beginning to go down. And that could be the topic of a whole other interview. Right? So I'll leave my tangent there. But yeah, I think it's fascinating. I'm really looking forward to reading the rest of the books in the series to see how that transpires.
So can you tell us a little bit about your publishing journey, either with Daughters of Anarchy or your other series? How did you decide on self-publishing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my publishing author life started back in the day, back in my nonfiction days. So I actually have some nonfiction books in a totally unrelated area, obviously. And my very first book was actually traditionally published. And so is my second, for that matter. I've got 5 nonfiction books. And those are kind of out of date. One of them still, actually my very first one still sells. It's a very perennial topic, but the rest, you know, they have a shelf life. Most nonfiction does. And, but after the second book, I realized, you know, I'm writing these quality books and I'm not making any money. And it irritated me, you know, and when you go through traditional publishing, you really don't, you lose rights to your material. There are pros and cons. I'm not necessarily bagging on traditional publishing. It just wasn't for me. And so my third book, I thought, okay, I'm going to try this self-publishing thing, and ended up being really good. Like I sold fewer books, but made way more money. And I had a more direct connection to the material and to those reading it. And it kind of was fun. And so then by the time I rolled around to get into fiction and realized that's what I really want to write, it was already, everything was kind of already in place. And so I have a publishing company, my own press that I have. And I put out my first fiction book in 2014. And that was a series. And then put out Daughters of Anarchy and finished that series. And now I'm working on another sci-fi thriller, dystopian, of course. And with an interesting theme to it. And I think that answered your questions, but let me know if it didn't.
Yes. It was really interesting that it was nonfiction self-publishing that really got you down this path. It's not really an area I have much experience in, to be honest. I did used to work in libraries, and so one of the issues we had was libraries don't invest in self-published books, at least currently. I think that might be starting to change. So as an academic, that must have been a whole different marketing issue that you had to work with. But fascinating. So let's see. Maybe you participated in NaNoWriMo. We were curious to know if that's some part of your year, and if so, what your process might be to get through it.
Oh, NaNoWriMo, yeah. So I have done it once, and but not in science fiction, in a different genre. And I did it as an experiment. And so this was not last November, but the one before. So by that time, I had some years of, I had some books under my belt and some years. I think it's a great journey that I suggest any budding writer try, and but the first time is going to be the hardest. I think a lot of people feel themselves meandering or not going the way they hoped it would go, and they give up. And I don't think you should do that. I think you should just gut it out and finish it. And so what I did was I just took 30 days, divided it by, I'm sorry, I took the 50,000 words and divided it by 30, and I think that came out to, I don't even remember, maybe 1633 or something. Or maybe it was, yeah, that sounds about right. And I just did that every day. And it started out hard. I thought, oh my gosh, what am I doing? And but then it got easier and easier. And I think what made it easiest, and I recommend this for everybody, is to sketch out an outline first. The outline's going to change. You don't have to be wed to it. But if you don't have an outline, you will meander off on a tangent, and then that's what's going to make you go, oh, forget it, I give up. And so at least having an idea of where you want the book to go, very generally, even if it's just a few lines, will help. And that will help ground you, because it's like, okay, I've written my 1,600 words today. Tomorrow, what am I going to write about? And you look over at your outline, and you're like, okay, I'm on to Act 2. And so that's kind of what I did, and I finished almost at exactly 50,000 words, because I have a weird mind like that, and it was really fun. And I think it's a great way to give people confidence, to show that if you just do it, you can do it. So,
what genre did you write in then, if not dystopian?
Oh, so I have a pen name where I'm writing contemporary romance, something totally different.
Oh. Very lucrative area.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really fun to write, and I had this story rolling around in my head for years, and I thought, why not? That's why I thought NaNoWriMo is a good way to try it out. And I ended up liking it so much that I now am writing in it. So
that's such an interesting combination. I really hope you blend those genres at some point. You really should.
You think?
I would read that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dystopian romance. I mean, actually, there's a lot of dystopian romance.
There is, but it's very serious.
Yeah,
I think
it's lighter.
A fun dystopian romance, I don't know, something that worked. The tone would be hard, but I think it would be fun.
It would be awesome.
Well, this isn't dystopian. It's contemporary. Which is my science fiction is dystopian, but my romance is not. It's pretty standard. They have dystopian romances, like they have dark romance. They have definitely have sci-fi romance, which is like a whole thing in itself that I'll probably see if I might fit into. We'll see. But, yeah. So
interesting. I love the double life that you
lead. It's writing multiple genres, I think. Mm-hmm. So what about reading then? What are you reading lately? Do you read a lot of contemporary romance as well as science fiction?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. Books. So I do read contemporary romance, but I don't devour it like the average romance reader does. I read it once in a while, and it's mostly just for research, just to kind of make me a better romance writer. But right now I'm reading Andy Weir's Artemis, which I'm only about 5% in. And so I can't say much about it, but I like his writing style. It's very approachable. I don't know if you've ever read The Martian or any of his stuff before, but I'm reading it for specific reasons. It's kind of classified as a sci-fi thriller, which is what I want to be writing. But so it's research writing as well, as I was just curious. I never read his stuff before. I read a lot of nonfiction because I love to learn. And so I've been reading stuff about how to simplify your life and things like that. And as far as science fiction goes, I've read, over the past couple of years, I've read mostly classic sci-fi because I consider it an education, even though it can be really dry and painful even sometimes. But, I'll admit I read Heinlein Stranger in a Strange Land, and it was like painful to get through. And plus, there's a famous line in there that's so grossly anti-feminist. All you have to do is look it up online. It's about rape, and it really offended me. But you know, there's still something to be learned from those books. But I happen to like Ursula Le Guin. I think she's one of the best of the classics. Her and Bradbury. So.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with both of those. So is there anything that you have been hoping that people would ask you about Daughters of Anarchy that you haven't had the opportunity to talk about yet in the forums or otherwise? Maybe a part of the story that you felt was particularly maybe a moral lesson or something you worked on that was particularly difficult to write?
You know what's, this is not probably the best answer, but it's something that has been on my mind. Is I wondered what people would think about her relationship with Steph. You know, maybe it's the inner romantic in me. Did they like it? Were they offended by it? You know, that she, you know, because it gets a little dicey there towards the end, right, with them too, and then there's some unexpected things that happen. I don't want to spoil anything, but you know, I was curious what people thought of that. But it's, you know, not the main thrust of the show. the book obviously isn't just what's going on with them, but and then most of my curiosities really would come out of the other books because some, you know, I kind of ratchet up the stakes in the other books, and there's some more killings that go on that are for very specific reasons that go beyond the first books.
Mm-hmm. I can say from my perspective, I did not find the romance offensive. I could see how people would. I think the reason that it works is because, I mean, obviously a relationship happened before the incident you're referring to. And it mostly just seemed like they were each playing the role they've been dealt. And then once they get past that, it happened, but it's not really what defined either of them, so to speak. So I didn't see it as a offensive moment. It was definitely a surprise, though. You kind of wondered at some points about him. And so, yeah, I thought it was well done. And what's so great about Daughters of Anarchy, for anyone who hasn't read it yet, is Christie has so many plot lines, and it all works so well together. And you do get resolution for most of them, not all of them, because of course there's a second book. But it is a self-contained novel too. If you aren't really interested in starting another series, you can thoroughly enjoy this without feeling you're left wanting more. So I just have that little romance story, which is nice.
Well, I appreciate that. I think it's important in a series you want to leave some things unsaid, but you want to make it feel like a whole book, you know, and not just a continuation, you know. And I'm glad that you felt that way, and I appreciate what you said. And I love to have multiple things going on. I tend to overcomplicate my books. It's like, especially in science fiction, how can you not? You know, there's so much going on, and yeah. But thank you, I appreciate that.
Oh yeah, it works very well. I mean, that pretty much is what I told Celia, because I was the one who read this one and decided we should reach out to you. I was like, yep, this one is an automatic. Let's contact her now. So, great.
All right, well, I think that can bring us to our final question. We asked all our authors this one. What does being an F-BOM author mean to you?
What does being an F-BOM author mean to me?
Yes.
Oh, gosh. It means a lot, actually, because I didn't realize it at first, but once I started getting into the series, I realized, wow, this is a truly feminist story in the whole sense of the word, in the true sense, you know. And I really wanted to see what feminist readers thought of it. And I've had a few people read it that I know have feminist leanings, male and female, who really liked it. And I thought, good. But I was wondering, I really wanted, I discovered WizCon, and I thought, oh, I want to go. And I wonder if they'll like DOA. And I'm like, oh, maybe they won't. It's too violent. Like, I wasn't sure. And so when you guys contacted me, I was like, yes. You know, like I felt like it was a good fit, and I was super excited. And so what does it mean to me? It means that it's a validation that this really is a feminist story, despite any violence or flaws it has, and that I want to be here.
That's awesome. I'm so glad that we were able to give you that affirmation. It is, without a doubt, I think, a feminist story. So, yeah, just like I said, I'm super excited to read the second one, which others will have a chance to read if they submit their work to our flash fiction contest.
Exactly. So we're going to reveal our topic, and then our prizes will be, as usual, F-BOM ebook membership and publication on the F-BOM blog. And then Christy is sending us a book bundle. So we're going to see winners are going to be able to read the later book of the Daughters of Anarchy series. And our topic is Someone is Watching. You can send your 100-word stories to submissions@fbom.com, and you'll have a month to get those in.
And how long are the submissions?
100 words, so don't go over that because I will kick you out.
That's like 2 words a day, 3 words a day. If you really want to split it up, just NaNoWriMo style. But I think we'll get some good ones for this topic.
It'd be funny to do a flash fiction story NaNoWriMo style, just see where the words take you.
Yeah, kind of like those magnets on the fridge, the word magnets, just adding. Yeah. Well, thank you everyone so much for joining us today. Christy, thank you for being our F-BOM author. It's been such a pleasure. And for our members, do not forget, log into the forums, download your ebook copy if you haven't yet. You still have time, another 2 months to enjoy asking questions to Christy, reading Daughters of Anarchy, and if you are so inclined, reading more books in the series while you still have the opportunity to ask questions about maybe even the next books, because you can find those available online. And if you aren't a member, you should sign up now. We have an ebook membership option that's $5 a month. Print book is $8 a month. If you sign up now, you'll get 2 months of Daughters of Anarchy, and then July 1st, we announce our summer F-BOM author, which is always a secret until the first day of the next quarter. So on that note, we'll be signing off. Yep. Christy, any last words you'd like to say?
Bye, everybody. Thanks so much for reading. See you in the forum.
Awesome. Bye.
Goodbye.